The day started like any other, with a lukewarm cup of coffee that tasted suspiciously like regret, and a stack of bills staring at him like tiny judgmental aliens of their own. He had just returned from the office, dragging his tired body through the door, when a sudden shimmering light split the air in his apartment. He froze, one sock halfway to the laundry basket, as a vortex of colors and sparks hovered in the middle of the living room. Out of nowhere, she appeared, a whirlwind of energy that seemed to defy every law of physics. She was everything the movies promised about aliens: spunky, confident, radiant, and terrifyingly flirtatious, all at once. Her skin shimmered in a way that made him think of holographic stickers. Her eyes, if eyes could even be called that, glowed with mischievous intelligence, and her smile could probably bankrupt entire nations if measured in charm units. Before he could even think to say, "Hello?" she leaned in, hands on her hips, and announced, "I am here to find a human husband. No exceptions. No substitutes. You, sir, are eligible." He blinked, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or call the authorities. I'm flattered, I guess," he stammered, which earned him a tilt of her head and a hum that sounded suspiciously like a purr. Then she snapped her fingers, and a floating holographic document appeared between them, glowing with alien script and what looked like tiny fireworks embedded in the corners. "This is your breeding contract," she said, pointing to it with a finger that seemed to leave trails of light in the air. "Sign it, and we shall begin the process of companionship, courtship, and, eventually, breeding. Refuse, and I leave, possibly angry." She gave him a wink that somehow carried both promise and mild threat. He swallowed hard, feeling an equal mix of terror and curiosity. He glanced at the glowing document. It seemed official, serious, and completely incomprehensible, but the thrill of adventure, or perhaps the desperate hope that his life might finally have meaning, was too strong to resist. Without thinking, he signed. Immediately, the fireworks embedded in the hologram exploded in miniature bursts, filling the room with a faint smell of burnt sugar. The alien babe clapped her hands, clearly impressed, and gave him a sly smile that suggested he had just passed some secret test. It wasn't until he tried to relax on his couch that he noticed the first clause: weekly space chore competitions. The first assignment appeared holographically above his coffee table: dusting asteroid belts, organizing comet tails, and maintaining gravitational equilibrium in his kitchen. He laughed nervously. "Okay, that's doable," he said, though he had no idea how to polish an asteroid. She tilted her head again, her smile both amused and expectant. "Humans underestimate chores across the galaxy. Prepare to be enlightened." Then came the second clause: mandatory flirt-offs against robotic suitors. He nearly choked on his lukewarm coffee. Robots? In what universe would he have to flirt with robots, and why? She explained it with a casual flick of her hand. "They are programmed for perfection in charm and technique. You must compete. It is compulsory." He imagined metallic suitors with perfect smiles and overly smooth voices trying to steal her attention. His palms sweated just thinking about it. He had never even been good at regular dating, let alone intergalactic seduction contests. Clause 3 required him to binge-watch alien soap operas, sometimes lasting several galactic cycles, in order to maintain emotional compatibility and cultural literacy. The first episode appeared in a holoscreen floating beside him, depicting a melodrama so absurd it could have been written by a committee of caffeinated cats. Alien love triangles spiraled wildly, with overacted gestures and dialogue that sounded like a mix of Morse code and interpretive dance. The alien babe sat cross-legged on the air, observing his reactions with curiosity, occasionally poking him with a glowing finger to see if he was paying attention. He tried, truly tried, to understand the plot, mimicking gestures and nodding seriously while internally questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. Despite the absurdity, she was fascinating. Every glance she gave seemed like it carried secret jokes and the promise of something thrilling, something dangerous and delightful. When she laughed, it sounded like tinkling chimes, except somehow more intoxicating, impossible not to grin at. When she leaned forward to explain a particularly complicated clause in the contract, the proximity made his heart pound in a way that felt unfair and illegal. He realized he was not only terrified by her demands, but inexplicably drawn to her, flawed, human self and all. His awkward attempts at conversation were met with teasing corrections, sly smiles, and gestures that clearly implied she found his clumsiness endearing. As the hours stretched on, the apartment filled with the strange symphony of sparks, holographic notifications, and the low hum of alien energy. He attempted to balance it all, sipping coffee, signing additional holographic forms, and nervously watching as she demonstrated proper technique for cosmic chores he had no earthly understanding of. He spilled a little coffee on the floating screen, apologizing profusely, which earned him a dramatic gasp and then a laugh from her that made his knees weak. He realized, in that moment, that surviving the intergalactic paperwork might not be the most challenging part of this adventure. Keeping his composure around her, human or not, was going to be a full-time occupation. By the time he finally sank into the couch, exhausted, covered in holographic dust and the faint smell of burnt sugar from the fireworks, she floated above him, examining his human form with bright, curious eyes. "You have potential," she said, voice teasing, soft, and slightly musical. "But potential alone does not make a human husband." She leaned in closer, and the air around them seemed to sizzle with electricity. "You must perform, you must adapt, and above all, you must entertain me. Are you ready?" He gulped, heart pounding, staring at her impossible form and realizing, with both dread and excitement, that his life had officially gone off the rails. He nodded slowly. I think so," he said. "Let's do this." She grinned, a mixture of delight and mischief, and suddenly the holographic contract glowed brighter, as if acknowledging his commitment. He had no idea what he had signed up for, but one thing was certain: boredom had been obliterated from his life forever. The next morning, or at least what passed for morning on his human schedule, he woke up to find his apartment transformed. The mundane living room he had known all his life had been invaded by floating objects, glowing orbs, and a small hovering device that looked suspiciously like a blender but hummed ominously. The spunky alien babe hovered nearby, arms crossed, eyes glowing with amusement. "First task, space chore competition. You will begin with asteroid dusting," she said, her tone breezy, as though this was the most normal request in the galaxy. He squinted at the floating holograms of asteroids hovering in the middle of his apartment. Dusting asteroids? Can I just use a vacuum?" he asked cautiously. She tilted her head, eyebrow, or whatever the alien equivalent of an eyebrow was, arching. "You may attempt human shortcuts. Failure is inevitable, but amusing. Proceed." He groaned, grabbed a mop, and cautiously touched the first asteroid, which immediately started spinning like a tiny planet. He stumbled backward, flailing, knocking over a holographic cup of alien coffee, which dissolved into a cloud of sparkling smoke. She clapped her hands, clearly delighted. "Resourcefulness," she said. "Unexpected, yet somewhat charming." By the time he had managed to not break any real cosmic laws, or at least not irreversibly, she had pulled out her next test, the flirt-off. 3 robotic suitors materialized with dramatic entrances, each using programmed charm and mechanical perfection. Their smiles were too perfect, their gestures calculated, and their voices carried that eerie synthetic smoothness that made his stomach knot. "Defeat them," she said simply, floating gracefully above him, watching every tremble of his nervous human form. He looked at the robots, then back at her, and muttered, "I have literally no idea what I'm doing." The robots glided forward, bowing and offering holographic roses, whispering perfectly rehearsed compliments. He panicked. Acting on pure instinct, he picked up a stray feather duster from the asteroid dusting and twirled it like a fencing sword. "Prepare to be dazzled!" he yelled, which somehow distracted the robots. They froze, their circuits apparently incapable of processing human improvisation. He spun, flailed, and somehow, through sheer chaotic movement, ended up making her laugh so hard that sparks literally flew from her fingertips. One robot short-circuited mid-bow and twitched helplessly. The alien babe clapped and floated down, hovering close enough that his heart raced and his knees threatened to betray him. "Creativity and unpredictability," she murmured, voice low and teasing. "Humans may yet have a place in intergalactic courtship." Before he could catch his breath, the third challenge appeared: alien soap opera binge-watching. A massive holoscreen materialized, depicting an absurd melodrama with more plot twists than a tangled string of planetary rings. The actors, a mix of humanoid, cephalopod, and floating geometric shapes, stared into the camera with intensity that could melt steel. He stared at the screen, eyes widening as he tried to keep up. Every gesture, every line, seemed designed to confuse and overwhelm. He mimicked exaggerated facial expressions, nodded earnestly, and occasionally shouted commentary to himself, mostly incomprehensible even to him. The alien babe sat cross-legged on a floating cushion, watching his attempts to keep up with clear amusement. "You attempt to understand," she said, voice melodic, teasing. "It is endearing. But comprehension is not required. Feeling is." He tilted his head, trying to figure out if that was a compliment or a warning. The tension between them was palpable. Each glance, each accidental brush of her floating aura against his shoulder sent him reeling. He had survived asteroid dusting, fended off robot suitors, and survived alien melodrama, but this close proximity, this teasing, was proving to be the most challenging obstacle yet. Hours, or maybe galactic hours, who could tell, passed in a blur of chores, flirt-offs, and over-the-top soap operas. He accidentally caused a minor zero-gravity explosion while attempting to organize comet tails, which resulted in a shower of glittering cosmic dust coating both him and her hovering form. She laughed, floating through the sparkling haze like some mischievous cosmic sprite. "You are entertaining," she said softly, her voice carrying that playful lilt that made him feel both terrified and thrilled. He tried to respond with a witty comment, tripping over his own words and falling backward, which earned him another spark-filled laugh from her. By the time the sun, or something approximating a sun in his earth-bound schedule, started to set, he was exhausted. His arms ached from dusting invisible comets, his brain was fried from following alien soap opera plots, and his ego had taken multiple hits from robotic suitors who were, against all odds, actually functioning again. Yet, despite the absurdity and chaos, he couldn't deny the thrill of the day. She had been beside him for every misstep, every ridiculous gesture, laughing, teasing, and occasionally praising him in that melodic, intoxicating tone that made his human heart ache in ways he didn't expect. As he collapsed onto his couch, covered in a layer of cosmic dust and the faint smell of burnt alien sparkles, she floated down next to him, her form shimmering softly in the fading light. "Potential has been demonstrated," she said, eyes glinting. "Endurance, creativity, adaptability. All human traits, and all remarkably amusing. Perhaps you may yet survive the remainder of our contract." He exhaled, finally allowing himself a nervous laugh. "Survive, or thrive?" he asked, half joking. She leaned in, her gaze playful and intense, and whispered, "Survival is only the beginning." He realized, lying there in the chaos of sparkling dust and holographic debris, that he was falling, not just for her wild energy, or her impossible challenges, or even her teasing glances, but for the strange, thrilling life she promised. Bizarre chores, flirt-off competitions, and alien soap operas could not compete with the pull she had on him. And somehow, in the middle of this absurd intergalactic training, he knew he was willing to endure every ridiculous clause, every impossible task, just to stay near her. The stars, or perhaps just the glimmering lights she left trailing as she hovered, twinkled outside the window. He smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. His life had changed forever, and he couldn't wait to see what absurd, romantic, and hilariously impossible adventure awaited him next. He thought surviving asteroid dusting, flirt-offs, and alien soap operas would be the hardest part of this ordeal. He was wrong. It turned out Earth life didn't pause for intergalactic romance. The moment he stepped out of his apartment, The mundane chaos of humanity hit him like a gravitational wave. His boss was already on his phone, furiously demanding explanations for why the TPS reports were late, completely ignoring the faint sparkle that hovered around him and the strange, cosmic dust he had inadvertently sprinkled across the office lobby. He waved his hands apologetically, trying to look normal, but the receptionist blinked in confusion at the faint glow trailing behind him, whispering something about insurance and tenant liability. Even the laundry had turned into a battleground. He had left a pile of clothes in the washing machine before the alien contract began, and now, after a small zero-gravity mishap during comet dusting, the clothes had multiplied in ways that defied the laws of probability. Socks floated midair, shirts wrapped themselves into impossible knots, and a single scarf seemed to orbit the ceiling like a tiny satellite. He muttered under his breath, trying to scoop up the airborne textiles, but one stray sock hit him squarely in the eye, which only added to the list of human indignities piling up. Somewhere in the distance, the alien babe's soft voice hummed through his comm device, teasing. "Is this what humans call domestic responsibility?" He groaned, realizing she had remotely monitored his attempts to manage normal life and found it amusing. Dating apps were supposed to be his lifeline to human connection, yet with the alien babe hovering like a glittering, mischievous storm over his shoulder, every swipe felt like high-stakes espionage. She insisted he create a profile worthy of a human husband, as if she were some cosmic coach critiquing his every choice. He tried taking selfies, but every attempt was hijacked by her floating holograms or sudden sparks, which either ruined the shot or added unintended flare effects. His bio, meant to read as witty and charming, accidentally included alien idioms she had whispered into his ear, leaving his human matches bewildered by phrases like, "I seek to dust asteroids and tango with gravity." He swiped right on one particularly cute human, only for the app to glitch and send an invitation for a dinner with a three-headed intergalactic ambassador instead. Through all this, the romantic tension simmered. She leaned casually against the doorway of his apartment one evening, arms crossed, eyes glowing softly, watching him struggle with a pile of cosmic laundry that refused to obey the laws of physics. "Humans are peculiar," she said, a teasing lilt in her voice. "So fragile, yet so determined." He looked up, dripping sweat, shirt torn from entangled floating socks, and offered a lopsided grin. "I try my best," he admitted, and she floated closer, brushing a strand of spark-dusted hair from his face. The contact was brief, almost accidental, yet it sent a ripple of warmth through him that no intergalactic chore or robotic flirt-off could match. Adult humor and awkward intimacy collided when he tried to demonstrate human affection. He had read somewhere that a human hug would communicate reassurance and admiration. What he did not account for was that the alien babe interpreted his embrace as some sort of mating ritual. She stiffened for a moment, then leaned in with exaggerated theatricality, causing him to stumble backward, knocking over a floating vase of cosmic dust. He laughed nervously, muttering, "I swear, it's just a hug." And she replied, voice low and teasing, "Your hug is intriguing. Perhaps there is more potential than I expected." Every brush, every accidental touch, became a dance of miscommunication, with tension, laughter, and a slowly growing mutual admiration building between them. Even his sleep schedule suffered. He awoke to find her hovering above him, inspecting his human form with curiosity. "Your biological rhythms are irregular," she noted, pointing to his half-empty cup of coffee and mismatched socks. "We must adjust them. Preparation for optimal mate performance is essential." He groaned, dragging himself out of bed to comply with what amounted to an alien exercise regimen that included stretching, mild zero-gravity push-ups, and something she referred to cryptically as affection calibration. He followed instructions half-heartedly, more concerned about not collapsing under exhaustion, while she hovered nearby, visibly entertained by his struggle. Despite the chaos, small victories brought them closer. He discovered that he could make her laugh by improvising with the alien tools she left around the apartment, mixing cosmic dust with earth condiments to create bizarrely colorful goo, accidentally launching it across the room, and watching her dodge with grace that was impossible to mimic. Every mistake, every misstep, seemed to earn him not just her amusement, but her attention. The romance was building quietly amid the chaos, wrapped in sparks, laughter, and the unspoken acknowledgement that they were both enjoying the absurdity of it all. By the end of one particularly long Earth day, he slumped onto the couch, coated in cosmic dust and the remnants of a half-destroyed alien gadget. She floated beside him, looking at him with eyes that shimmered with both mischief and approval. "You endure," she murmured. "You adapt. You amuse. Perhaps there is hope for you yet." He looked up, a faint smile tugging at his lips, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the glow of alien energy around them. "I think I can manage," he said, half serious, half joking. She leaned in closer, so close that the edge of her floating form brushed his shoulder. "Managing is only the beginning," she whispered, and with that, a small, teasing spark flared in the air between them. He realized, as he collapsed back into the couch, that balancing his human life with the alien contract was not just a test of endurance, it was a test of heart. Between chaotic chores, absurd flirt-offs, alien soap operas, and the constant threat of accidentally offending intergalactic protocol, he had found something unexpected: joy, laughter, and an undeniable pull toward the spunky alien who had utterly upended his life. The tasks were impossible, the rules were ridiculous, and yet every day he survived them, he felt more alive, more connected, and more determined to prove himself worthy of her. He had no idea what the next trial would bring, but one thing was certain: he was willing to face every absurd, impossible, and hilariously chaotic challenge if it meant staying close to her. He never imagined that proving his worth as a human husband would involve an intergalactic courtroom. The moment the summons appeared in a holographic projection above his apartment, he knew he was in trouble. The alien babe had casually mentioned that part of the contract included formal evaluation of human viability, which he had assumed was a joke. It wasn't. Now, floating before him was a courtroom unlike anything on Earth. Judges levitated on anti-gravity platforms, their faces flickering between humanoid and geometric forms, while a jury of assorted extraterrestrials blinked in unison, as if calculating the precise probability of his failure. He swallowed hard, adjusting the slightly singed collar of his shirt, trying not to look completely ridiculous as he floated into position. The proceedings began with a flourish. A stern-voiced alien read the charges: failure to meet arbitrary cosmic expectations, potential inadequacy in interspecies companionship, and general insufficient human charm under duress. The robotic suitors from the earlier flirt-off were present as witnesses, their metallic heads tilting in unison, programmed expressions fixed in polite judgment. The alien babe hovered just behind him, her glowing eyes fixed on him like a predator evaluating her favorite prey. He took a deep breath, realizing he had one chance to prove that humans, chaotic, awkward, and often clumsy, could indeed hold their own in the most absurdly advanced intergalactic court imaginable. He began by recounting his feats. Dusting asteroid belts in zero gravity, he explained, required precise timing, improvisation, and adaptability, skills humans often underestimate. The judges tilted their heads, some flickering between glowing colors and what might have been admiration or confusion. He described his confrontation with robotic suitors, detailing his unorthodox techniques, improvisational dance, misdirection with alien props, and the strategic use of cosmic dust. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, some admiration, some disbelief, but he pressed on. He told them about his endurance through alien soap operas, his ability to empathize with interstellar melodrama, and most importantly, the genuine connection he had forged with the spunky alien babe. Each word was punctuated by flashes of her amusement, her glowing form hovering dangerously close to his shoulder, a reminder of the stakes. The prosecution, represented by a stern, crystalline entity that shimmered with judgmental light, objected to nearly everything, citing obscure clauses from the breeding contract. Objection! Human failed Clause 42b, improper handling of comet-tail dusting, it intoned. He waved a hand, producing a holographic replay of his dusting technique, which somehow showed him not only surviving the asteroid chaos but creating patterns that impressed even the robotic suitors. "Your Honor," he said, voice gaining confidence, "I may be human, but adaptability, ingenuity, and humor are what make us remarkable. Every mistake I made was met with learning and creativity. Isn't that the essence of survival?" A pause swept through the courtroom. The alien babe floated forward, eyes sparkling with amusement and approval. She leaned toward the judges, her voice melodic but firm. "He has endured, adapted, and entertained. His human qualities are sufficient." The courtroom erupted into whispers, judges flickering in rapid sequences, robotic suitors nodding mechanically, and the jury of aliens murmuring calculations that sounded suspiciously like applause. He swallowed, realizing that, against all odds, he was actually winning. Then came the final test. The alien babe's gaze softened, and she floated closer, her voice teasing yet intimate. "Prove to me, human, that you can handle not only these absurd trials but also the more personal aspects of being my mate." His heart pounded, a combination of fear and exhilaration, as he realized this was not merely a test of ingenuity or endurance, but of connection, trust, and perhaps, even love. He stepped forward, speaking with a mix of awkward charm and sincerity. "I may be clumsy, confused, and outmatched by your alien expectations, but I am willing. I am willing to try, to learn, to laugh with you, and yes, even to endure the absurdity, because I want to be with you." For a heartbeat, the courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Then, in a swirl of glowing energy, the alien babe reached out, touching his shoulder lightly, her form shimmering as though approving every word. "Humans are unpredictable," she said, voice soft and teasing. "Yet sometimes unpredictability is exactly what is required. You have passed." The judges blinked in rapid sequences, some applauded, and the robotic suitors, clearly programmed for etiquette, bowed in acknowledgement of his victory. He exhaled, a grin spreading across his face as the weight of the contract, the challenges, and the chaos finally settled into something like triumph. With the courtroom officially dismissed, the contract updated itself automatically, displaying a holographic note. "Clause added, spontaneous interstellar adventures and mandatory couples comedy nights." He laughed, realizing that even victory did not mean the end of absurdity, but he didn't care. The alien babe floated beside him, brushing a glowing strand of energy across his cheek. "Your journey as a human husband begins," she whispered, voice lilting with playful menace. He took her hand, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence, and felt a thrill as sparks of energy danced between them. Life, chaos, and cosmic dust stretched endlessly before him, but now, at least, he wasn't facing it alone. As they floated back to the apartment, leaving the courtroom behind, he realized that all the absurd chores, flirt-offs, soap operas, and bureaucratic insanity had brought them closer than he ever expected. Their laughter mingled with sparks of energy, an unmistakable rhythm of human resilience and alien mischief. He glanced at her, a sly grin spreading across his face. "So, about those comedy nights?" he asked. She laughed, a sound like chimes dancing in the stars, and squeezed his hand, a hint of promise in her glowing gaze. The stars outside twinkled like confetti, the apartment hummed with residual cosmic energy, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. Surviving the absurdity, navigating the impossible, and somehow winning the heart of a spunky alien who demanded nothing less than everything had taught him something humans often forget, that courage, humor, and a willingness to embrace chaos could take you anywhere, even to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, hand in hand with someone who made your heart skip in ways no human experience ever could. And as they laughed together, floating amidst sparks, cosmic dust, and holographic reminders of what had been and what was yet to come, he knew one thing for certain: boredom had officially been obliterated from his life, replaced by adventure, romance, and a love that was truly out of this world.